Before the Golden Arches conquered the landscape, American lunch counters were a riot of regional flavors and resourceful inventions. These weren't just meals. They were the fuel of a building nation, born of necessity, tradition, and a waste-not philosophy that defined the American spirit. Today on Stories Behind Food, we're embarking on a 30-minute journey to resurrect 30 long-lost American sandwiches that built this country before fast food killed them. We'll look at the survival meals of the Great Depression, the regional gems that never made it to the national menu, and the industrial relics of a simpler time. This is the history of America served between two slices of bread. Let's head back to the era before the drive-thru changed everything. The Jewish deli wasn't just a place to eat, it was the original social network, a sensory immersion into a new world for millions of immigrants. Number 1, the beef tongue sandwich. Today, the idea might make some recoil, but in the 1800s, this was a mark of high society respectability. It had its own language, its own rhythm, and it offered a taste of the old country, adapted for the incredible speed and ambition of the new. Brined, slow-simmered, and sliced into delicate ribbons, it was a cornerstone of the American Jewish deli, a savory masterpiece lost to the rise of pre-packaged uniform meats. Here, the tongue sandwich wasn't a curiosity, it was a shared identity, a nutritional anchor for a community in transition, building the city from the ground up. But not every sandwich was born of the factory or the farm. To understand the refined side of American history, we have to enter the world of the tea room. To understand why the tongue sandwich was so respected, we have to look at the giants of the Gilded Age meatpacking industry, Armour, Swift, and Morris. Here, sandwiches were an exercise in delicacy, crusts were removed, and fillings like beef tongue or salmon salad were sliced translucent, paired with high-quality butter. Number 2, the fried calf brain sandwich. To understand this sandwich, you have to understand the workers who built the American Midwest. The tea room was a social haven, a place for conversation and community that elevated the humble sandwich into a mark of urban sophistication. They turned preservation into a science, making the labor-intensive preparations of the past available to a growing urban population. The tongue was their first triumph of efficiency. Battered and fried until crisp with a custardy interior, it was a regional icon of tavern culture, eventually silenced by modern food safety fears and the decline of the industrial heartland. This industrial scale fueled the first great American deli boom, providing the raw materials for a culture that valued tradition but demanded the speed of the city. Number 3, the beef jelly sandwich. In the 1920s, before modern refrigeration was common, this was a masterpiece of household economy. By boiling scraps into a savory jelly and chilling it in an icebox, farm families turned leftovers into a refined, slicing the cold, rich jelly for a nose-to-tail lunch. A simple but satisfying presentation on a wooden board. Rustic greens nearby. Number 4, the liver mush sandwich. If the brain sandwich belonged to the Midwest, liver mush is the enduring soul of North Carolina. Fried until the edges are crispy and dark, this working man's pâté remains a fierce symbol of Appalachian identity, refusing to be erased by the corporate burger. Number 5, the head cheese sandwich. Despite the name, you won't find a drop of dairy in this masterful centuries-old creation. Born from the necessity of using every scrap, this labor-intensive terrain of meat and spices vanished, as artisanal butchers were replaced by uniform supermarket deli counters. Before the supermarket took over, the neighborhood butcher was the architect of the community's health and economy. Number 6, the liver and onion sandwich. Long before it was relegated to poverty food, this was a nutritional giant in the American diet. They knew every muscle and every bone. Their customers understood that nothing, not even the head or the trotters, should be wasted. It was a partnership of respect for the animal. Considered essential health food for a growing nation, this iron-rich staple offered a deep, savory intensity that fueled families through the hardest work days. The loss of the head cheese and the beef jelly began when we stopped talking to our butchers and started picking from a pre-wrapped plastic tray, choosing convenience over craftsmanship. Number 7, liverwurst and onion. For decades, this was the sophisticated choice for a grown-up lunch at the local deli counter. This buttery, savory sausage defined the mid-century office lunch, offering a complex, old-world flavor profile that slowly faded as palates shifted toward milder processed meats. Number 8, the chopped liver sandwich. This wasn't just food, it was a cornerstone of community and tradition. A labor of love made with hand-chopped livers and rendered chicken fat, it stood at the center of the American Jewish culinary experience before becoming a holiday-only relic. Number 9, the baked bean sandwich. In 1933, when a nickel bought your lunch, mothers looked to the pantry for salvation. Cheap, filling, and surprisingly nutritious, this survival meal was a testament to the resourcefulness of a generation that made do with whatever they had. In the schoolyards of the 1930s, the lunchbox was the primary unit of economic exchange. A baked bean sandwich or a PB and mayo was a currency of survival. Number 10, peanut butter and mayonnaise, a 1920s creation that became an iconic survival hack during the Depression. Mothers took immense pride in their ability to make something substantial from nothing. The cleverness of the sandwich was a shield against the shame of the breadline. When jam was a luxury, mayo provided the fat and calories needed for survival, creating a Southern staple that still sparks heated debate and nostalgia today. It was a generation that learned the value of a single bite, building a bond through the shared burden of the Depression that would define the country for decades. During the Great Depression, nutrition became a science of survival. Government agencies calculated the exact number of calories a worker needed to sustain a 10-hour day. Number 11, the Lard sandwich, perhaps the simplest, most honest meal in American history. Born of pure necessity, fat was the most efficient delivery system. A lard sandwich wasn't just a choice, it was a biological necessity for a nation that couldn't afford to stop working. In the hardest winters of the early 20th century, pork fat was the primary source of energy for many working families. Legumes like the baked bean were hailed as the poor man's beef, providing the protein backbone for the schoolyards of the Dust Bowl. 2 slices of bread, a thick layer of fat, and a sprinkle of salt. It was pure survival, a way to keep the body going when nothing else was in the pantry. This era also saw the birth of the spread, a way to make expensive ingredients like nuts or meat stretch across entire loaves of bread. It's a ghost of a time when fat was life, a stark reminder of the resilience of a nation that built itself on the most basic of fuels. Americans became masters of flavor chemistry out of necessity, discovering that the tangy fat of mayo could turn a dry slice into a satisfying meal. To understand the lard sandwich, you have to understand the farm economy. In the early 1900s, lard was a precious commodity, rendered by hand after every harvest. Number 12, the banana and mayonnaise sandwich, a meaty miracle. For pennies that became a Southern legend. It provided the dense caloric energy required for the back-breaking labor of the industrial and agrarian age, a literal fuel for a nation in motion. The banana provided a surprising heft and texture, and when paired with the tangy fat of mayonnaise, it created something unique. It was a Depression-era staple that refused to leave the South, becoming a beloved comfort food, eaten for generations of field hands and factory workers. From humble kitchen tables to the lunchboxes of NASCAR legends, it's a lost flavor that represents the ingenuity of the Southern spirit. Number 13, the peanut butter and pickle sandwich, a Depression-era hack that delivers a shocking punch of flavor. Number 14, the sugar and butter sandwich, the ultimate treat for a generation of children who had very little. When sweets were a luxury, a thick layer of butter and a generous dusting of sugar turned a plain slice into a celebration. Chemically, it makes sense. The salt and vinegar of the pickle cut through the heavy fats of the peanut butter, creating a balance of flavor that modern chefs are only now starting to rediscover. It was a simple joy that cut through the gray days of the Great Depression, a taste of sweetness in a time of incredible hardship. During the Depression, these were 2 of the cheapest proteins available. Combining them was a stroke of survivalist genius that kept a generation of children fed. While it's rarely seen today, the sugar and butter sandwich remains a powerful memory of a time when happiness was found in the smallest ingredients. Number 15, the radish and butter sandwich, a seasonal celebration of the very first garden crops to emerge in spring. The peppery crunch of the radish and the rich silkiness of the butter created a high society flavor for the price of a backyard garden. It was a cornerstone of the spring picnic, a way to celebrate the return of life to the land after a long, hard winter. The success of these 30 sandwiches often rested on a single, invisible ingredient, the condiment. This was the era of high-impact flavors. As we moved away from the land and into the age of the supermarket, this seasonal rhythm, and the radish sandwich with it, slowly slipped away. Mustard provided the sharp, acidic bite needed to cut through iron-rich organ meats, while mayonnaise offered the cooling, caloric fat that turned survival meals into comfort food. Number 16, the deviled ham sandwich. First canned in 1868, this ground spiced ham was a marvel of industrial food preservation. Before they were standardized in plastic squeeze bottles, condiments were personal, often made by hand with local ingredients that gave each lunch counter its own signature flavor. Before the age of the global supply chain, the American lunch counter was a slave to the seasons. This wasn't a limitation, it was a celebration. With its iconic devil logo, it became a pantry staple for soldiers and factory workers, offering a reliable, savory kick that defined the American lunchbox for a century. The radish and butter sandwich or the sugar butter treat weren't just meals, they were temporal markers, linking the American worker to the rhythm of the soil. The secret was the deviling, a heavy hand with spices that masked the preserved nature of the meat and provided a kick that became addictive for generations. It was the original convenience food, shelf-stable, affordable, and surprisingly flavorful, representing the industrialization of the American kitchen. It traveled the world in the rucksacks of American GIs, representing a taste of the industrial home front that could survive even the harshest conditions of war. Number 17. Potted meat and mayonnaise. For generations, this was the ultimate make-do sandwich, a symbol of working-class resilience. It was made from the less prized cuts, ground and spiced to provide protein for families who had to stretch every single penny. While it's often looked down upon today, potted meat provided the caloric backbone for the families that built modern America. Number 18. The salmon salad sandwich. In the early 20th century, this was the upscale answer to the humble tuna. Housewives would add hard-boiled eggs and extra celery to stretch the expensive canned salmon, creating a rich, textured lunch for special occasions. It was a taste of luxury that defined the pre-Depression era, a bridge between the humble pantry and the refined dining table. Number 19. The sardine and egg sandwich, a high-protein powerhouse that fueled America during the ration-heavy years of the World Wars. Cheap, shelf-stable, and packed with energy, it was a savory necessity when fresh meat was sent to the front lines. It represents the sacrifice and ingenuity of the greatest generation, a flavor born of global conflict and domestic resilience. Number 20. Cream chipped beef on toast, more famously known by its military moniker, SOS. Shredded dried beef in a thick, peppery Mornay-style gravy. It wasn't pretty, but it was hot, filling, and tasted like home to millions of veterans. From the trenches of WWI to the diners of the 1950s, SOS remains a polarizing, powerful relic of American military culinary history. Number 21. The mock chicken sandwich, a culinary illusion born from the deepest days of the Great Depression. Housewives used a clever mix of eggs, tomatoes, and herbs to conjure the taste and texture of chicken, when real poultry was far too expensive. It's a masterclass in culinary resourcefulness, a ghost of a time when flavor was a victory of the imagination over poverty. Number 22. The olive loaf sandwich, the brine-forward, colorful king of the mid-century lunch meat counter. A blend of pork and beef studded with whole green pimento-stuffed olives. It provided a built-in garnish and a salty punch that kids in the 60s adored. It represents the peak of processed convenience, a colorful, briny relic of an era that valued novelty as much as nourishment. Number 23. The Denver sandwich, before it was a brunch menu omelet. It was the original portable breakfast of the American frontier. The regional gems we've explored were housed in a unique American space, the diner. Originally literally converted railroad cars, they were designed for transit and speed. Originating in the late 1800s, it was designed for cowboys and railroad workers who needed a high-energy meal they could eat with one hand while on the move. The counter was a stage. Every sandwich, from the Denver to the loose meat, was prepared in full view, turning the act of lunch into a performance of craftsmanship. The foundation was a hearty mix of diced ham, onions, and green peppers, ingredients that traveled well and provided a much-needed punch of flavor. As diners were replaced by standardized restaurants, the stage was hidden, and the performance, along with the unique regional recipes, was slowly lost to the drive-thru. Once scrambled and folded into a dense patty, it was tucked into toast, creating a robust, portable fuel that conquered the West long before the drive-thru. It represents the ingenuity of the trail, a meal that transformed from a survival necessity into a beloved American cafe classic. Number 24. The hot brown, created in 1926 at Louisville's legendary Brown Hotel. This was a sandwich designed for late-night luxury. After a long night of dinner dancing, guests wanted something more substantial than eggs. Chef Fred Schmidt answered with this decadent, open-faced creation. It starts with roasted turkey and tomato on toast, but the soul is the Mornay sauce, a rich, cheese-infused bechamel poured over the top like a blanket, topped with crispy bacon and browned until the sauce bubbles. It's a high society tradition that remains a source of immense pride for the city of Louisville. While many regional gems were lost, the hot brown survives as a testament to the era of the Grand Hotel and the art of the late-night supper. Number 25. The Prosperity Sandwich, a St. Louis original from the 1920s that symbolized the optimism of the pre-Depression years. Similar to its cousin, the hot brown, it featured turkey and bacon dripping with a rich cheese sauce, designed to be a decadent treat for a thriving middle class. Many of these 30 sandwiches weren't American until they touched the soil of the Bronx, Fall River, or Chicago. They were the flavors of the diaspora. It was the meal of choice for shoppers and businessmen alike. A flavor of a city at its peak before the world changed in 1929. The tongue sandwich from the Jewish Deli and the pepper and egg from the Italian kitchen were immigrant survival stories that became the backbone of the American lunch hour. As the Depression hit, the prosperity sandwich became a cruel irony for many, slowly fading from the menus as the nation tightened its belt. Number 26, the pepper and egg sandwich for Italian-American families. This was the unmistakable flavor of a Lenten Friday. When meat was forbidden on Fridays, mothers from Chicago to New York turned to the garden for a meal that was simple, holy, and deeply satisfying. It began with long green peppers, fried in olive oil until they were tender and slightly charred, releasing a sweet, peppery aroma that defined the neighborhood. During the World Wars, the American sandwich was drafted into service. Rationing wasn't just a policy. It was a fundamental reshape of the national flavor. Scrambled eggs were folded in, then the whole mixture was piled onto a crusty roll. It was a humble, hearty bite that linked faith and family on a single bun. We learned to love sardines, deviled ham, and potted meats not just because they were convenient, but because they were a shared patriotic sacrifice, a taste of the collective effort. While it's still found in a few traditional pockets, it remains a powerful memory of a time when the rhythm of the week was set by the frying pan. When the war ended, the abundance that followed ironically killed the very ingenuity that rationing had fostered. Number 27, the loose meat sandwich, also known as the Tavern sandwich. This is an Iowa legend that defied the rules of the bun. As the industrial loaf rose, the neighborhood baker fell. We traded the unique daily baked crust of our towns for the plastic-wrapped promise of the supermarket. Born in 1926, it was a reaction to the standard burger. Instead of a pressed patty, the beef was seasoned and cooked loose, retaining its natural juices. When we lost the variety of the baker, we lost the regional identity of the sandwich. The story of America became a single standardized slice. The beef is slow-cooked with a blend of spices and onions until it's incredibly tender, then piled high until it spills out of the soft white roll, served with just mustard and pickles. It's a messy, satisfying masterpiece that proved you didn't need a patty to build a cult following across the Midwest. While it spawned a franchise, the original tavern-style loose meat remains a rare localized treasure, a flavor of a simpler, more rugged time. Number 28, the Chow sandwich, a culinary collision that could only happen in the industrial towns of Massachusetts. Originating in the 1920s, it was designed to appeal to local workers by fusing Chinese-American flavors with the portable American sandwich format. In cities like New York and Baltimore, the oyster cellar was the heart of the underground economy. It was a subterranean world of flavor and noise. Crispy fried noodles were drenched in a savory brown gravy, often with chicken or pork, and then tucked inside a standard hamburger bun. Shucking was a performance of speed and skill. A master shucker could pop hundreds an hour. It was a unique sensory experience. The crunch of the noodle, the salt of the gravy, and the soft sweetness of the bun. A true regional curiosity. While nearly extinct outside of Fall River, it remains a proud symbol of immigrant ingenuity and the eclectic spirit of American lunch counters. In Fall River, the chow mein sandwich wasn't just a meal, it was an industrial fusion. It was a bridge between the textile mills and the local chop suey houses. Number 29, the Oyster Club. Before oysters were a luxury, they were the ultimate American street food. It represented a moment when different cultures, brought together by the machinery of industry, created a flavor that was entirely new and entirely American. In the 1800s, oysters were so abundant they were cheaper than beef. The Oyster Club was the blue-collar king of the lunch menu. Freshly shucked oysters were battered and fried, then layered with crisp lettuce, tomato, and a sharp horseradish sauce on toasted bread. As overharvesting and pollution decimated the oyster beds in the 1920s, prices soared, and this street food staple vanished into history. It represents a time when the ocean's bounty was for everyone, a lost flavor that defined the original American urban experience. But where did these sandwiches go? To understand that, you have to look at the architecture of the American lunch pail. And finally, number 30, the Jello mold sandwich loaf, the visual masterpiece that marked the peak of mid-century creativity. Before the modern lunchbox, pails were designed to keep food warm and protect it from the soot and grime of the factory floor. It was a labor of love, layers of colorful salad fillings stacked high, then frosted with a thick layer of cream cheese or savory gelatin. This physical constraint dictated the shape of the American sandwich. Fillings had to be stable, portable, and above all, compact. It was the ultimate party centerpiece, a food that looked like a cake but tasted like an entire deli counter. It was the height of mid-century novelty. The introduction of the thermos and the square lunchbox in the mid-century changed the game again, allowing for cold milks and standardized sandwiches. As fast food standardized the American diet, the labor-intensive sandwich loaf became a kitschy memory. As we moved toward a more uniform carrying case, we also moved toward a more uniform meal, leaving the bulky, localized favorites of the past behind. 30 sandwiches, 30 stories of resilience, regional pride, and the resourceful spirit that built the American culinary identity. But to understand how these 30 sandwiches were lost, we first have to understand the industrial foundation they were built upon. In the late 1800s, the Pullman loaf revolutionized the sandwich. Its square shape was designed to maximize space in the railroad dining cars. The lunch counter was the original social network. It was a place where the CEO and the clerk sat shoulder to shoulder, sharing a loose meat or an oyster club. This uniformity allowed for the mass production of sandwiches, providing the perfect canvas for the diverse regional fillings we've explored today. It provided a sense of place and belonging that a drive-thru speaker simply cannot replicate. Then came the 1920s and the dawn of Wonder Bread. For the first time, bread wasn't just industrial, it was pre-sliced, pillowy soft, and impossibly white. It represented the ultimate convenience, but it also signaled a shift toward a softer, milder palate. Parallel to the bread revolution was the rise of the automat. In the 1930s and 40s, this was the height of dining modernity, fast, efficient, and impersonal. It was the precursor to fast food, a machine-driven dining experience that prioritized speed over story and standardized the menu for a nation on the clock. But the final blow came in the 1950s with the dawn of the drive-thru. We moved out of the city centers and onto the highways, and our food had to move with us. To serve millions in minutes, the menu had to be uniform. Regional flavors like Fall River's chow mein or St. Louis's brain sandwich simply didn't scale. We traded the eccentric for the reliable, the regional for the national. The American palate became homogenized. But today, we are seeing a revival. A new generation of chefs and historians is digging through the archives, resurrecting these flavors and the stories behind them. Because a sandwich is never just a sandwich, it's a record of where we've been. Thank you for joining us on this journey through America's lost culinary history. I'm Stories Behind Food, and this has been Stories Behind Food. Don't let these stories die. If you have a memory of a long-lost regional sandwich, share it in the comments below. We'll see you next time. As we move further into the digital age, there is a growing hunger for the analog, the authentic, and the regional. We are rediscovering our roots. These 30 sandwiches are not just ghosts of history. They are a blueprint for a more flavorful, more connected American future. Stay hungry for the story.